Good afternoon, I'm Chris Sinachkate. Welcome to APTN National News. The family of a missing man in the Northwest Territories say they need more support searching for their loved one. Ralph Bolio, a seasoned hunter, went out to his cabin on April 23rd and was supposed to come back on May 8th. However, the 54-year-old never showed up. Our reporter Charlotte Morit-Jacobs headed out to the search camp to find out more.
On this busy stretch of highway outside of Yellowknife, a camp forms. Family and friends desperate to find Ralph Bolio, a 54-year-old experienced Dene hunter and trapper who has been missing for over a week. He was dropped off at his cabin near Boundary Creek on April 23rd. His brother was scheduled to pick him up on May 8th, but when he arrived, Ralph was nowhere to be found. Cousins like Lorraine Villeneuve have been driving up from Fort Resolution and pulling long hours.
Trying to get the stuff organized here. I brought some radios and a little bit of stuff for, you know, the crews that are out on the search and rescue, just to keep contact with us over here on this end, because I think it's like a 45-minute walk to the cabin.
But the search has been facing some roadblocks. Members from the Canadian Rangers have been out but are not permitted to coordinate as a group to search.
We can't wear our uniforms, so we had to be in our civvies. And they won't get the Canadian Rangers out until the RCMP would release or ask them to ask for assistance.
Yellowknife's volunteer ground search and rescue team has been sending members out. Ralph's 2 rifles, shoes, eyeglasses, and a back support strap have been recovered.
All in the same sort of an area, so it is not like stuff was lying on the ground.
Yeah, he was moving or something like that.
Oh yeah, he was moving. Hopefully not very fast. So anyway, it kind of gives us a few clues about where we think we might be searching next, but we're still also cleaning up some areas we've missed.
Yeah.
Search manager Tom Gergwire says they're going to begin using comprehensive maps to continue moving the search forward day by day.
Once you start the process of planning, it's just you continue moving your search forward day to day. And that's essentially what we'll be doing. So we're definitely here until the end of this week through to the long weekend.
Ralph's sister, Eva Bolio, says she's frustrated that RCMP haven't been out helping much until today. They were initially there when Ralph was reported missing, but she says the family has been left in the dark for much of the week.
We've complained, MLAs, chiefs, been out here, we've talked to them. On Tuesday, we had 6 rangers that couldn't use their uniform that came out to help do the search from Yellowknife area. We only seen the RCMP once on Saturday for a couple of minutes that talked to the people out here, but didn't even go into the woods.
RCMP Constable Ryan Price says the first search last week was like trying to find a needle in a haystack.
Some items have been located, so it'll give us a more specific area to search instead of just a big, broad, general area out in the woods.
As the day goes on, more people gather, showing their support.
I just pray that we bring Ralph home to the family. So if you all could light a candle and do a little prayer for Ralph and the family.
Charlotte Morit-Jacobs, APTN National News, near Boundary Creek.
Now to BC, where the Haida Reconciliation Act has now become law. Known as the Rising Tide Haida Title Land Agreement, is being described as a historic legislation that recognizes Haida Aboriginal title throughout the traditional territory of Haida Gwaii, including over 200 islands along the northwest coast of British Columbia. It has now received royal assent in the BC legislature.
I've always had faith in the Haida. Very, very strong people. Very well organized. They've had incredible leadership over their history, and they were one of the first Indigenous groups that I know of that developed their own constitution. And that was a very, very volatile debate, but they did it. So all decisions now are made by the entire populace in a legislative setting.
A school in northwestern New Mexico says it will be reviewing its graduation ceremony attire policy to include more cultural elements. This comes after a recent incident involving an Indigenous student whose beaded grad cap was taken away by 2 school staff members in exchange for a plain one. In this May 13th video, you can see grad student Genesis Whitebull visibly upset while being asked to take off her grad cap. The cap was decorated, beaded, and prayed for by her family, and an eagle plume was also attached to the tassel. The Whitebull family said they found the cap in a lost and found bin after the ceremony. The beadwork was damaged and the string holding the plume had been cut. The family questioned why Genesis was singled out when other students with modifications to their caps were not. Farmington Municipal School told APTN News students were informed throughout the year that caps and gowns may not be altered. In a statement, they added, "While the staff involved were following district guidelines, we acknowledge this could have been handled differently and better. Moving forward, we will work to refine our processes at the school level." APTN News reached out to both Genesis Whitebull and her mother Brenda, but did not get a response. People who have been waiting on an extended care wait list in the Northwest Territories have a reason to celebrate this spring. A highly anticipated health facility in Yellowknife is set to open after 5 long years. Charlotte Moritz-Jacobs gives us an in-depth tour.
Kliwagunti, meaning Skinny Fish Lake, is a massive retrofit of the former Territorial Hospital in Yellowknife, and it's gearing up to open this month. It will have extended housing and long-term care for residents, as well as primary care and outpatient rehabilitation services. Here's an individual room, where residents can choose to bring items for their memory box. Director of Continuing Care of the Northwest Territories Health and Social Services Authority, Lisa Raynar, says residents can bring their own furniture or use the basic furniture provided, and they are equipped with medical gases like oxygen. In total, there's 90 beds, 16 for extended care, increasing the capacity by 6 beds compared to the current unit at Stanton Territorial Hospital. The increase in beds should completely clear the wait list for extended care. A new feature, the 4 family rooms for residents from out of town who need a place to stay when visiting, and or to be used when a loved one is dying and families will cycle through.
It's things that we've heard in the past about if people try to come to visit, they only do it when they come for medical travel, because then their accommodations and their travels kind of covered. So if we can also have some people be able to afford to come and visit family members and try and facilitate visitation as much as possible.
Kliwagunti is complete with living and dining room areas where residents can choose what they want to eat. A spa room complete with a lift into tub and sink for washing and cutting hair. And common rooms like a spiritual room and an activity room and outdoor patio space.
As I said, extended care residents currently don't have access to outdoors, and because we're up on a 2nd and 3rd floor, it's not easy access, so having the patios is a huge feature. We know how important the land is, being outdoors is to our Indigenous residents, and so this was in the way that we can.
Raynar says they are implementing input from surveys across the north about the need for more country food.
If they wanted to, or if we get enough of a donation that our food service people can also prepare large quantities. It gives us something as well for the Indigenous Wellness Program that we know has worked really well at Stanton Hospital, that I know sometimes they do caribou stew and bannock on like a Friday, and so it gives them a space that they could use that's like a commercial grade kitchen.
Lastly, the 1st floor is for public health needs, complete with a reception area, primary care units, and 36 exam rooms. Each room has a printer, scale, and height measurement tool, so staff will not have to leave the room for those tasks. It's also the first time rehabilitation services will fall under the same roof, including a physiotherapy gym, private treatment rooms, and sound booths, occupational therapy, physiotherapy, speech-language pathology, child development, and audiology. 1st floor services will move in this month. Early July, staff and patients from extended care will transfer over, and finally, long-term care once the wait list is processed. Charlotte Mort-Jacobs, APTN National News, Yellowknife.
Stick around because when we return, we'll tell you all about a new Dene book from Saskatchewan. Welcome back. Following McGill University's lead, students from the Montreal campus of the University of Quebec have set up their own pro-Palestinian encampment. APTN's Maricela Amador spoke with an Innu student who is part of the movement.
Ça impacte pas, je pense. Le message n'est pas impacté par le visage ou non, selon moi.
Zan Choquette is an Innu student. He attends the University of Quebec's Montreal campus, or UQAM, and stands in solidarity with the Palestinians.
I think that we have to realize as Indigenous people to the importance of solidarity across a different Indigenous nation, because I want to remind people that Palestinians are Indigenous to their land and they're going through a genocide. We're still in a genocide. We've gone through it.
Choquette is part of a second pro-Palestinian encampment recently erected in Montreal. Students from UQAM have joined protests at universities across the country, including McGill. Choquette says he first joined the McGill protest when it was first set up last month.
We're there in solidarity with McGill, but also we have our own demands and stuff. But yeah, it's just, I've been there, and I think it's important to be here as much as possible.
The student group is demanding an academic boycott against Israel from all Quebec universities. They want the university to also not invest in companies with ties to Israel, and the closing of the Quebec government's office in Tel Aviv. Leila Khaled is a student at the university and a spokesperson for the encampment.
D'abord, nous, notre campement est sorti du campement de McGill. Donc c'est une continuité un peu de la lutte qui a commencé à McGill et qui était le premier carrément au niveau Canada. Maintenant, je pense autour de 13 ou 14 à travers le Canada. C'est quand même fascinant de voir que le nombre est en train de se multiplier et on espère que ça se multiplie encore plus.
Yesterday, a Quebec Superior Court judge rejected McGill University's request for an injunction to remove the pro-Palestinian encampment from their campus. It is the second injunction request a Quebec court has denied.
The atmosphere is really great for real. We see a really strong sense of community, and like for some people, I heard some people being like, "It's the first time I experience this community feeling."
Choquette acknowledges that he is taking a risk by openly being part of this movement. But ultimately, he said he knows he is doing the right thing. Maricela Amador, APTN National News, Montreal.
The community of Loche in northern Saskatchewan is sharing more Dene stories. The second volume of the Dene Strong series has brought together the community to share tales of courage, resilience, and wisdom. Here's Rachel May, who sat down with the people behind the book.
We need to showcase that we are proud of who we are, and that our future generations need to know that we were proud, our ancestors were proud.
Land, Language and Culture Coordinator at Loche Dene High School, Shane Janvier, says his home community has a lot of stories to tell. Dene Strong, too, has 16 stories translated to English to showcase their community's spirit. He says this book is about language, healing, and preserving culture.
We fought so hard just to keep our language, our traditions, our culture alive till today. And I still hold that, I still hold that in my heart. I still believe that my culture is strong.
Editor Marianne Neal volunteers with Indigenous communities across Canada and worked with Janvier on both volumes of Dene Strong. She says once they finished Volume 1, she saw the need for even more written stories.
Because I think we're just getting started. Like really, there's so many stories that are yet untold, and the elders are getting older, and a lot of the stories are dying with them.
This second book features pictures taken in Loche and a glossary of Dene words and phrases. Rachel May, APTN National News, Saskatoon.
In Winnipeg, an Indigenous birding club at the University of Manitoba is helping people connect with nature while sharing Indigenous knowledge. Sierra Bettens joined them on their weekly walk.
House sparrow, female house sparrow, right there. So you just want to kind of just zone in, relax, and then all of a sudden you'll see a weird little movement or a call, and then you try to find it with your binoculars. And then
spring has sprung at the University of Manitoba. And that means the raucous Canada geese have returned to their seasonal home. But if you listen closely, dozens of bird varieties can be heard. And the folks who run the university's Indigenous Birding Club are helping people tune in.
It's simple what we do. It's just connecting people and nature for all the benefits that brings. So the mental benefits, the emotional, physical, and the spiritual.
Last May, Bailey Hendry and Justin Rasmussen, both Métis, founded the U of M Indigenous Birding Club. Every Thursday, the birders meet in front of the Luriel statue at the Mikizi Agamik Lounge. For 90 minutes, participants can decompress, connect with nature, and glean Indigenous knowledge of birds.
Throughout the pandemic, birding kind of just like became a thing for a lot of people. And I was, talking to Justin, and I was like, I feel like it would just be an awesome thing to combine the two and bring them here as an opportunity for students to engage in community, culture, and birding together.
Rasmussen holds a PhD in biological sciences and a lifelong fascination with birds. Hendry, who works at the Indigenous Student Centre, started birding during the pandemic. As one of the first Indigenous birding clubs in Canada, the organizers stress the importance of community, engaging with elders, and promoting Indigenous knowledge of birds.
We've had knowledge about birds for hundreds and hundreds of years, and we also have a lot of elders in our community who hold that knowledge. So one of the things that we do and what we've done is we've brought elders from the community to do teachings about birds. There was an event that we held for people to come and harvest an eagle together, and we heard about eagle teachings and so forth. So there's lots of opportunities for them to engage, and obviously the geese agree with me.
During walks, organizers reject having a guide. Instead, they encourage participation and collaboration.
We try to change the dynamic of having one expert sharing knowledge, and instead we go out as a group as equals, and everyone has something to share, and we all learn from each other.
Coming up on their one-year anniversary, the club continues to provide a space for people to learn and just be.
When we shed our titles and just become humans out there appreciating nature, we feel that that's where real relationships can form.
Sierra Buttons, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Thank you, Sierra. Here is the results of our latest web poll that you can find at aptnnews.ca. This week we asked, the 5th anniversary of the MMIWG final report is coming up. How much progress do you think has been made on the calls for justice? It was a mixed result, with most saying none have been met. We also asked, are you taking part in the Loblaws boycott? And it seems 41% of you are taking part in the boycott of Loblaws, while 31% are not. And our final question was, wildfire season is here. Do you have an emergency kit ready in case you need to evacuate your home? While a majority of you aren't affected by wildfires, 16% have a kit ready just in case. We'll have new web poll questions on aptnnews.ca next week. We have another break, but stick around because we'll tell you all about a larger-than-life dream catcher in Ontario. Over on the East Coast, St. John's 5, Charlottetown 17. Cartwright 7, Inujuak 6. Southern Quebec, Quebec City 18. Montreal 26. Southern Ontario, North Bay 25, Toronto 23. Northern Ontario, Sioux Lookout 19, Wawa 21 with cloud. Northern Manitoba, Churchill 3, Norway House 11 with clouds. Southern Manitoba, Gimli 13, Brandon 23 with rain. Southern Saskatchewan, Saskatoon 15, Regina 19. Northern Saskatchewan, Stony Rapids 8, Buffalo Narrows 10 with cloud. Northern Alberta, Fort Chipewyan 5, Peace River 17 with rain. Southern Alberta, Edmonton 11, Calgary 13. British Columbia, Bella Coola 15, Vancouver 17. Northern BC, East Lake 12, Smithers 14. Old Crow 11, Mayo 18. Northwest Territories, Norman Wells 14, Fort Simpson 16. Inuvik 6, Colville 7 with sun. Baker Lake 1, Chesterfield 0. Resolute -2, Igloolik -1. The annual Vision Quest conference that's held every year in Winnipeg wrapped up this week with a familiar hockey superstar.
Awesome, yeah, it's always good to get back to Manitoba, where basically my hockey career started.
Keynote speaker Jordan Tutu was joined by our very own APTN National News host Dennis Ward for a fireside chat. Tutu spoke about how important it is to be a leader in your community, his love for his family, and the tough topic of suicide. He also took questions from the crowd and explained what it was like going into the NHL and leaving his home community.
Awesome. From where? When you go into a place of unknown, it's scary, right? Many of us have been there. But it's also a risk that you have to take in order to grow as an individual. You know, a lot of times we live in a bubble in our remote communities.
That's a good lesson. For more than a year, an Indigenous man and a committed group of volunteers in Ontario made it their mission to build the largest dream catcher after discovering that the current Guinness World Record holder for that feat is all the way in Europe. Here's CTV's Catalina Gillies on claiming the title.
Rama First Nation resident Bob Williams has been making dream catchers since 1997. When he learned that the Guinness World Record for the largest dream catcher belonged to Lithuania, he immediately got to work.
I seen the one over in Europe, and I thought, well, that just can't happen over there in Europe. We got to have that in Rama or in Canada.
Williams, along with volunteers from the community, started crafting the dream catcher together last year. He sent his submission to Guinness World Record officials last week.
For about 6 months, it took us to get it all together, and then we had to wait a year for the ground to thaw out so they can put that tower in place.
The dream catcher is 60 feet tall, 43 feet wide, and weighs over 2,000 pounds. It's made of various types of wood, 5,000 feet of sinew, and 7,000 feet of rope.
Everything was donated on that dream catcher, which is great. It was a lot of money. It came to about $5,000.
Williams says he wants people of all cultures, religions, and ethnicities to enjoy the dream catcher.
It's spiritual and it's traditional. It's take away, like I said, it can take away the bad spirits. And if you really got some bad thoughts, and it just might help you out.
Williams believes the dream catcher will help keep Rama First Nation safe, and he's thankful for the community to help him bring his dream to life.
And with the community involved that did it, there it is. Proof is right there. You got the people that back me on this, and we guys are going to have the largest dream catcher in the world, and that's pretty awesome for our people.
The final piece of the dream catcher will be installed in 2 weeks to complete the full shape. Williams says he expects to hear back from Guinness World Record officials at the beginning of August. Catalina Gillies, CTV News, Rama First Nation.
It's giving me Medicine Hat Big Teepee vibes. We hope you win the title, Bob. That's our Friday midday show for this May 17th. Make sure to join our host, Dennis Ward, for our next APTN National Newscast this afternoon. Hi, miigwech, masi cho, and thank you for watching. Happy Friday, everyone.